and we saw engagement rates spike and obviously a mass following. And it was as simple as utilizing the tool that was free.
You're listening to the Legal Mastermind Podcast with your hosts Ryan Klein and Chase Williams, the go-to podcast for learning from the experts in the legal community about effective ways to grow and manage your law firm.
Today on the Legal Mastermind Podcast, we have Carol Endicott. She is the Director of Communications at Umbrella Legal Marketing, one of the top legal marketing firms in Toronto, Canada. She's done some great PR work for Nike, Kellogg, Samsung, some really huge brands. And now she focuses in the legal industry. So welcome to the Legal Mastermind, Carol.
Thank you so much for having me.
And of course, I have my co-host here, Ryan Klein.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're going to talk about some really cool things today, a really cool LinkedIn hack, and then also dive into some new PR initiatives that Carol's been working on for her clients. So I guess really starting off, Carol, can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Sure thing. So I've been in the PR and marketing space now for just under 15 years. I started in a PR agency, a small boutique agency with some pretty big brands, one of them being Nike and Samsung. And then I kind of went into a larger global firm and got my hands on some more tech clients. And one of those was Motorola. But definitely the consumer type PR, marketing communications type files. And then from there, actually went internal, like in corporate communications, and then came into legal marketing. How I came into that was a LinkedIn. Someone reached out to me. I had a coffee with them, and kind of the rest is history. And ironically, it's actually been the most rewarding part of my career so far. I'm working with law firms and lawyers. It's really interesting. It's definitely different than those big consumer type brands. And I think the reason is because they look at you definitely as the expert. And I think they totally trust what you're saying and your direction that you're giving them from a marketing and PR perspective. Whereas I feel like maybe some bigger brands, et cetera, there's just a lot of layers in there of different marketing experts, PR experts. You know, sometimes you get held up, and sometimes you have great execution and great initiatives as well. So, yep, been in the law space now for about 3 years. I would say majority of our clients are mid-size to boutique firms, which is amazing. Those boutique firms, I think their value is phenomenal and definitely give those bigger firms a run for their money. And they obviously offer, a unique perspective too that is really appealing to potential clients. So definitely our space is boutique and mid-sized firms. And I predominantly focus on the PR and social media strategy for firms, but definitely too, as the years have gone on and I've kind of gotten my feet wet in more of marketing initiatives from website development and design and really focusing on those like SEO components with blog writing, et cetera, to really build the profile of these firms. But I would definitely say my bread and butter is PR and social media.
Awesome. Diving straight in, we briefly spoke about a new LinkedIn strategy. I think that'd be really interesting just to kick it off and talk about that strategy and how I think you said the posts were getting the thousands of likes.
So this was with a boutique firm that we have here in Toronto, relatively new in this space and relatively really highly competitive space. So this is employment law. So employment law in Toronto, there's lots of firms. It's a really competitive market. And we onboarded with this firm in their infancy. So one of the strategies we put in place is really developing their referral base. And LinkedIn being a great social media tool for referrals, we really wanted to build up their following on their company page. So as some of you know, LinkedIn is actually really expensive from an ad perspective. And we find that the return on an investment with LinkedIn ad is mediocre. I find it's better from a client perspective running something on another social platform, for example, Instagram and Facebook. But LinkedIn, to get those referrals and really build up awareness within the employment law industry, one tool that they have, which is free, is inviting your connections to follow your company profile. So what essentially we did is add associate lawyers and the principal as admins onto the LinkedIn company page. And they could send out to all of their contacts to follow the page, which resulted in a really short time, like 3 months, 1,000 followers on their company profile page. And as a boutique law firm in a competitive space, that was pretty impressive. And what we're seeing is a higher rate of engagement on the posts that we put on LinkedIn. Now, we're really consistent with our posts on LinkedIn, just as best practices. We typically encourage and do this on behalf of clients, is post 3 times a week on industry type news. However, we also too write blog content, and that also gets posted. So about 4 times a week, content's being posted on their LinkedIn, and we saw engagement rates spike and obviously a mass following. And it was as simple as utilizing the tool that was free to LinkedIn users and sending out invitations for people to follow. And surprisingly, a lot of people did. So, and I think it's too, your connections on LinkedIn. I think some people have actually know who they are, and some it's just industry, but it was worth the shot, and we saw impressive results through that.
So when you're saying engagement, you're talking about like people commenting, having a conversation, sharing it, liking it, pretty much everything all around?
Exactly. So from an engagement perspective, and I find this across social media a little bit in the legal sphere, essentially not as much as a consumer type brand, you're not going to get as much commenting and that type of engagement on posts as you would, for example, like a consumer brand like Nike, and they launch a shoe and, you know, there's 100 people talking about it and whatever. Usually with legal content, it's a little bit less engaging comment wise, but the click through is really high. So we found that although engagement rate essentially on comments was still relatively low, likes went up, reshares went up significantly, but the most significant growth was people clicking through to content. And that happened, especially, which we always want, is clicking through back to your site. So especially when we write a blog, that engagement rate jumped, I think it was like 200%. And the increased traffic of going back to the firm's site, it was 200% higher than the month before, and it keeps growing. And that engagement in itself and reshares. And we can also see on the back end, like how long people are staying on that content on the site. And month over month, it's increasing tenfold. And that was all through utilizing a free option through LinkedIn.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that campaign. Sounds like it's definitely going in the right direction. And in addition to that, I know that, you know, even if you build a great following, that's all going to come down to probably 2 things, like the content itself and engaging subjects and topic lines that really draw them in, and then also consistency. So how do you consistently create engaging content week after week, especially if you're posting 3 times a week?
Well, so to get consistent, the good news is, especially in employment law space, for example, some different practice areas are more difficult to create like that engaging content. You know, it just depends on the nature of the practice. But with employment law, luckily enough, there's no shortage of content that is interest to the public. So for example, we just came off this very strong Me Too movement. There's a lot of job loss now in the market. Unfortunately, businesses are changing, downsizing. Employees are now, a lot of our consultants. So what does it mean to be an independent contractor versus a dependent contractor? What are your legal rights with your employment? You know, being either a consultant, contractor, being self-employed, being employed with a company. There's really no shortage of engaging content. And what we do is really use mainstream media through the 3 posts per week. So we source credible news sources that are talking about things that are relevant to in the employment law space. I'm just using that as an example. But any space that is relevant, we highlight that through credible news sources. And then when we create a blog, it's discussing 2 things. So one, what is engaging to a potential client or existing client, and 2, what is really honing in on the specific practice area and making that law firm or individual lawyer be the expert in that field. And then again, we get into like SEO perspective, it's a great opportunity, obviously, that we can really build that in with our blogs. But from a content perspective and engagement, that's how we strategize. And that is what we continue to do week over week, and really kind of engage new followers and ensure that existing clients or new clients were positioned as the expert. And I think people know too. I mean, now it's the day and age of you're looking for a firm, you go to Google, but you're going beyond just like clicking through their Google, looking at maybe reviews in their website, but you are looking at their social media too, because it's where we are now as well. And if a client is not posting very much on social media, and then maybe you're looking at another firm and they're posting all the time, it can sway the potential client, because it looks like these people are really engaged. They know what's their industry. They appear to be on top of what is, people are talking about right now, really looking like industry experts. So that's kind of basically the strategy. And that's why we insist that you really be consistent with your social media posts, and then also select content that is really engaging and that would interest essentially the client.
And great. And actually I was thinking a lot about the actual content and the origination, I guess, of the content itself, because when you were talking about that, it reminded me of a previous conversation we had with a video production company in South Florida that said when they're working with LinkedIn, they're always hosting videos directly on LinkedIn as opposed to having a video on YouTube and linking to it. So in your experience, does it kind of augment your efforts to host some of this content like kind of exclusively with LinkedIn? Like, do you use the article functionality on LinkedIn to like post articles directly there, or are you mostly linking out from other places where the content has already been featured?
So it kind of depends. So it's twofold. So if it's our own original content, so for example, if we did a video and we're hosting it on our site and we're writing content like blogs on our site, we link out, because our objective is to have people go to their site, like go to our client site and spend time there. But if it's not our content, so someone else's, so it depends. So sometimes we do utilize the LinkedIn share, and then other times it will be linking out to another source, although it just depends what type of content that is, where we try either not to really do that a lot, or we definitely, it's part of our strategy. And if it's our own, we host on the site where we want people to go. So from a YouTube perspective, I would agree with the video production company that you spoke to in Florida. We're kind of stepping away more from that first YouTube share then to other social platforms. If we can utilize it right off the social platform like LinkedIn first, that's where we want to go, or Instagram, like for example, first. And as you probably know, Instagram is probably one of the fastest growing social channels actually we see, and it's kind of surprising in some ways in the legal space that is actually still one of our fastest growing channels. But yes, to that point, we do try to utilize the video content or from direct site, or we're driving people back to our website because it's our original content.
That's awesome. And then one thing that I wanted to sort of touch on too is like, once that content's out there, how much value is in there in repurposing that content?
So in what ways? Can you just elaborate?
Sure,
an example?
Sure. I mean, I guess a different way to ask the question would be, are you guys repurposing the content once it's out there, or is it just, a blog's written and then it's pushed out? And are you waiting, you coming back like 6 months later and repurposing or reposting the content?
No. So for example, if it's a blog content, once it's out there, we won't repurpose it again. We will write new, fresh content. It could be around the subject area of what we've written or have said or videotaped or whatever, but we'll make it fresh. We never repurpose it in that ways because for two reasons. Well, yesterday's or today's news was yesterday's news. From an SEO perspective, we want to beef things up, always changing with like Google best practices. So we don't rarely repurpose content. We recreate it, maybe same topic wise, but it's fresh. From a PR perspective, sometimes the content we write actually make really great media stories. So in that way would be a repurpose, but again, it's fresh, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, definitely. When we were speaking earlier, you mentioned that you just finished wrapping up a really unique and different PR project. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So this was for a personal injury law firm in Western Canada. And we were tasked with creating an engaging social media advertising campaign. So as you know, like PR is now encompassing of all these different elements. It's not traditional just media relations anymore. So one of those ideas we put together was making it more community focused. So more of a community perspective and really that community PR element versus this is what we do. This is how we can serve you essentially from a practice area. So we filmed in their office and we filmed the partners talking about their community initiatives. So it was a personal injury firm. They have a lot of community involvement being through, I'm not sure if you guys have this in the US, but it's Mothers Against Drinking and Driving. They have their foothold on like a cerebral palsy association. These types of associations and organizations that unfortunately a lot of their clients are part of. So, severe car accidents, birth injury, which can result in cerebral palsy. So what we wanted to do was really talk about their involvement within the community and how important the community was to them. And so we filmed 2 segments and we ran these interviews. They skewed about a minute with a little bit of like some B-roll of their involvement. So there's a charity golf tournament component. There was I think it was like a Christmas toy drive for specific like cerebral palsy and these organizations. And that was like the B-roll, but then most of it was their interview talking about their community involvement and how important the community was. So we ran that across Facebook and Instagram for social media advertising. And our budget was relatively like not high whatsoever for it. And we yielded higher results and click-throughs of any of our types of ad we had previously run for the firm, where it did speak more of what they are experts in and services. Their community CSR initiatives yielded higher results and a better return on investment than we saw before with their service advertising, essentially.
There's a ton of value around being involved in the community, and one of the ways to get involved is through events.
Yeah.
So really, what do you think is the best way for someone who hasn't been involved before to get involved?
Well, the best way I would say is identify your value in a community event. So what that means to individual firms, usually it comes down to the partner making that decision, is it's personal, right? So to get involved in a community event, it depends on, I think, too, what type of practice area you're in that resonates with the event you want to get involved in. And sometimes it's a really personal matter. It could be like a charity type event as well that they have a strong connection to. And it really goes a long way when a firm gets involved with the community through event. And the reason why it goes a long way is because unfortunately, lawyers, law firms, they have a stigma of, either being like these robots are not humans. They're, whatever it's about money and whatnot, which is completely actually false. A lot of lawyers actually get into the practice of law because they really care about people. And it's true. They really want the best for people. And that's why they are in the law space. So getting involved in community from an event perspective really humanizes the lawyer and the firm. And it really shows that you care about your community, because your community is what is giving you business as well. So giving back and being a part of that is fundamental. And so from an event perspective, it can be from charity. It can also be hosting your own event and giving back. So for example, if you're an estate lawyer and you host your own event on wills, like how to write a will, how to ensure that you are taking care of your family and your children and whatnot, those free types of events, those informative educational pieces of event, they give really back to your community. You're offering a service, and it really shows that you care about the people within your space. Donating your time and energy into an event in your community is really powerful as well. It makes for great CSR initiatives that you can share on social media too. For example, you can go big with a big charity. There's a firm that we have that it really puts a lot of time into. It's called the Heart and Stroke Foundation, and they do a charity bike ride. They do a bake-off thing. There's a lot of components to that, and it really shows involvement within the community, from humane societies with walking dogs and visiting to bigger initiatives like cancer and whatnot, where lawyers spend their time doing these types of events and support. There's also an initiative here in Ontario that lawyers feed the hungry. So they take time out of their day and they go and they help do this food program, which is wonderful as well. And then again, to own personal events that lawyers or law firms want to host really puts a strong foothold in the community. And many times they're really easy to initiate. I think sometimes people think it's too big and it's too time consuming, and they're a little bit nervous to do it, putting themselves out there. But we find with the right practice, it goes a long way. And it's definitely something, a service like we have, that we help a lot of our clients do this as well, host their own events and also get involved in events with the community. We also help identify those events that they can get involved in the community. But like I said before, sometimes it's very personal with a partner or principal of the firm, and they already know what types of initiatives they want to get involved. But it does go a long way to really show your care for the community that you're a part of.
Yeah, we think community events are super cool. There's actually this law firm I used to work for, in-house as director of marketing about 5 years ago. They had an annual Christmas event as a law firm down in South Florida, and they had like the whole parking lot blocked off. The partners would get on stage. They would play a couple songs. They'd like jam out. They had vendors from all over town coming and donating food. They had silent raffles. They had a couple charities. They would do a laser light show on the building, like with that Trans-Siberian Orchestra playing over it. It was like a whole thing, and the whole community would look forward to it for like months in advance. And it was like a big thing. And I think that they got a lot of brand awareness just from doing that every year, and just building on it year after year, making it bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and to that point, it's a great opportunity for brand awareness, and you won't have a bigger stage in your community to have your brand really out there, and it really shows that you have a foothold in your community, you care, you're offering service right off the bat too, and that brand recognition, because always keep in mind, you don't need a lawyer until you need a lawyer. So sometimes you don't, it could be 2 years down the road and, actually I'm going to sell my house or whatever, or I need to update my will. You'll remember that brand. You'll remember that firm because of the initiatives they have within your community And so that brand awareness, brand recognition, it's the customers that come sometimes back, not immediately, but down the road. And that whole event process is a big part of that.
So I guess really the last thing, Carol, if people want to get a hold of you and want to discuss anything that you've gone over today, what's the best way to reach out to you?
The best way is just, you can email me, but I would recommend actually checking out our website first. So it's umbrellalegalmarketing.com. There's a whole contact form on the site. You can check us out, kind of look at the services we offer. We have great case studies on there too. You can kind of see the work we've done with other firms. And then other than that, easiest is just a telephone number. So it's 416-356-4672. And we're more than happy to have a discussion. Interesting enough, so a lot of our clients, obviously Toronto based, we are across Canada, out in Alberta and British Columbia. And we really actually want to actually break into kind of like North US, so New York State, Pennsylvania type firms, because we're just right beside, we're neighbors. So that's definitely a space that we're interested in getting into.
Sounds great. Well, appreciate the time, Carol.
Thank you so much, guys. This was great.
Yeah, appreciate it. We covered a lot in 30 minutes. It's there's a lot of substance, so I'm really excited about this one.
Thanks for listening to the Legal Mastermind podcast. If you're interested in working with Ryan and Chase, please email mastermind@marketmymarket.com. Make sure to join the free mastermind group for growing and managing your firm at lawfirmmastermind.com. Ryan Klein and Chase Williams are the managing partners at Market My Market, one of the top legal marketing companies in the United States.